Hello, my name is Rishi Rajagopalan, and welcome back to the RIOT ACT. Back to school. It's that special time of the year when campuses get busy, school buses get packed, and these ads air on your TV screens.
These tales from back to school. Denim, haircut, backpacks, come get your backpack.
I've been looking for a cheetah print bag all summer. Man, department store Dora really has me nostalgic for my school days. But one thing I will never miss about school is the lunches. Half-frozen milk cartons, stale pizza, watery fruit cups. Yo, school lunches were super nasty. But I had to keep buying them so I could chat up Miss Johnson. The way her lipstick matched that hairnet, oh! To be fair, school lunches haven't been around forever. Only about 120 years. Before then, most children would go back home to eat, probably because Lunchables hadn't hit the market yet. Side note, why did we ever think these were good? A big saltine with ketchup and string cheese was classroom caviar? Anyways, around the turn of the century, major cities like Philadelphia and Boston started serving meals in schools. During the Great Depression, this became a major program, thanks to New Deal policies that bought up excess crops from farmers and employed school cooks. Wherever these programs were implemented, higher attendance, engagement, and happiness were reported. Fast forward to 1946, and the National School Lunch Act mandated that America's youth would never go hungry. But what exactly were they eating?
Weird-looking piece of meat. Ugh, it's mushy. Whoa, it looks soggy. Oh my gosh. It's like falling apart. It tastes like dog food. Is it dog food? What is it? Liver! It's a cow's liver! Ew!
Okay, that girl needs to be on Food Network. Did y'all see that liver? It may not look like the most nutritious meal, and that's because it's not. In fact, sources say that the first batch of liver loaf was so unhealthy, it gave FDR polio. Speaking of FDR, remember that New Deal program? Well, the food the federal government bought for students wasn't exactly off the top shelf. Whatever crops and livestock farmers couldn't sell were dumped on school children's plates. With food surplus stocks vanishing due to World War II, perishable foods often arrived at schools already rotting. The USDA responded to these concerns by releasing new menu plans with items such as chipped beef, affectionately known as shit on a shingle, and scrapple, a sort of meat pudding made of ground up pig scraps. If you've ever eaten scrapple, you don't need the vaccine. In the 1980s, school lunches somehow got even worse. America had a massive surplus of dairy products, like hundreds of millions of pounds of cheese and butter. That's almost enough for 2 whole Paula Deen recipes. There was so much dairy that in 1986, the government created the Whole Herd Buyout Program, where they paid farmers to slaughter all their dairy cows and sell the beef to the government. As usual, that influx of beef and dairy funneled straight into school lunches, boosting child obesity rates. Now, we all know Ronald Reagan has a history of caring for the health and well-being of America's youth, like when he cut the federal school lunch budget by $1.5 billion, leading to less kids getting free or reduced-price meals, smaller portions, and nutritional standards being changed to cover up the difference. The USDA said fuck it and classified ketchup as a vegetable. And if Reagan hadn't gotten dementia, crack might be a vegetable too. Rest assured, in 1992, there was a breakthrough. The USDA finally got their act together and produced the work of the century. Yeah, you remember. I'm talking about the food pyramid. Fun fact, this model served as the inspiration for the Egyptians. Too bad it's completely inaccurate and has no real nutritional value whatsoever. That's right. Something the government told you wasn't true. I wonder what else they're lying about. Big agricultural lobbies like the milk and meat industries made sure that their profits were prioritized above the health of America's children. For example, the USDA guidelines classified red meat as healthy eating, in the same category as poultry and seafood. But tons of studies have shown that red meat is actually comparable to highly processed foods when it comes to increased risk of heart disease and cancer. Or, if you're feeling frisky, you can knock out 2 birds with 1 stone and just eat a Slim Jim. But the lobbying didn't stop there.
Want to grow? The calcium in milk helps bones grow.
Milk Mustache Mario was one of the most effective ad campaigns of the modern era. In 1993, Got Milk generated $255 million in milk sales in California alone. The chair of Harvard's Department of Nutrition said there's just not scientific evidence to support such large amounts of dairy consumption. We're literally getting bamboozled into drinking more milk. As a member of the oppressed lactose intolerant community, I am appalled at this white supremacist dairy propaganda. Team macadamia milk all day, bitches. The 2000s ushered in a new era, and I'm not talking about Raymond. We got some new artwork from the legendary USDA graphics department. The updated My Pyramid rolled out in 2005, and I see the Stairmaster lobby was heavily involved. The real change came with First Lady Michelle Obama and the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. Long story short, the HHFK Twigs authorized $4.5 billion in new funding for school lunch and breakfast, and raised nutritional standards, access, and monitoring. Short story shorter, fries and soda were replaced with leafy greens and whole grains. These changes were followed with the My Plate Graphic Nutrition Guide in 2011. So you're telling me the government turned pyramids into plates and they're not turning the frogs gay? The HHFK was responsible for significant gains in healthy eating among participants across the board, especially for low-income students. Piece by piece, the Trump administration rolled back those standards, citing food waste and cost. Everyone wants our nation's youth to be well-fed, but because school lunches have been made into a political football, they've failed to live up to their promise. Yet, school lunches aren't an entirely failed concept. The National School Lunch Program feeds 30 million children annually, over 2/3 of whom are low income. To actually live up to their exceptional promise to put quality food into our kids' lives, we need to cut out lobbies and increase funding to the program. Not only will this fix the flaws in food nutrition, it will also address food access.
The USDA defines a food desert as an area where at least a third of the population lives greater than 1 mile away from a supermarket for urban areas or greater than 10 miles for rural areas. It is typically located in an area with higher levels of poverty, where residents have limited access to healthy and affordable food. And many of these families also do not own a vehicle, so getting to a well-stocked full-service grocery store on a regular basis can be very difficult.
The Urban Institute estimates that about 1 in 4 families have experienced food insecurity in the last 30 days. Among Hispanic and Black families, these rates are even higher, at 40%. Food deserts and insecurity at large is why school lunch programs are so vital. They provide food to needy families who might not be able to eat regular meals otherwise. But many hungry kids are not able to afford school lunches because they are means tested. To qualify for a free lunch, a family of 4 must earn less than $32,630 a year. Any more than that, and kids must pay for their meals. So what happens if kids don't qualify and can't pay for their meals? They end up accruing school lunch debt, where these unpaid costs follow them throughout their education. School lunch debt practices aren't just financially extractive. They're intentionally cruel. Schools have stamped kids' hands with "I need lunch money," barred students from extracurriculars, and even prevented students from graduating until they paid off their debts.
Madison County students tweeted out this photo of 15-year-old Dominic Russell, who refused to obey cafeteria staff.
Well, I was in the hole, apparently $26, I think, and I'd already gotten my lunch and walked back to the table.
Because Dominic owed nearly $30, a lunch lady laid down the rule now being enforced.
And then they came and got me and made me go back up and told me to throw it away.
The practice of school lunch debt isn't rare either. Estimates are that 1.5 million students pay full price for school meals they can't afford, and the national public school meal debt is $262 million a year. In Vancouver, Washington, 8-year-old Keone Ching sold homemade keychains to pay off the $4,000 his classmates owed in lunch debt. And he's not alone. Right now in America, the primary way we pay off these debts is through charity. So get working, Keone, because Nancy Pelosi's brittle fingers are not in keychain making shape. See, the reason marginalized families accrue debt is because of political cowardice. Politicians simply aren't willing to pay enough to ensure school lunches are affordable and accessible to all. This financial limitation is especially puzzling because of how beneficial school lunch programs are in the long run. These programs don't just feed hungry kids, they make them better students. Research indicates that school lunch programs improve student math and reading performance, reduce average student BMI, and cause fewer disciplinary incidents in schools. These benefits are even larger when schools contract with healthy lunch providers and expand eligibility to school lunch programs. People seem to think that the cost of universal meals for students is too high, but they don't realize that providing meals for students ends up paying for itself in the long run by improving health and reducing incarceration. That's why we need real, structured, systematic change, like the Universal School Meals Program Act of 2021. Under this proposal, schools can provide free breakfast, lunch, and dinner to all students, sourcing local farm-to-table foods. They would also give families money for food during summer, when access is the lowest for kids. We'll have information in the description below. Join us in urging our representatives to support this bill and make sure we never have to feed our kids chipped beef and scrapple again. I'm Rishi Rajagopalan, and you've been read the RIOT ACT.